Walking Dead Onslaught doesn't offer nearly as nuanced an experience as its spin-off counterpart Saints and Sinners from earlier this year, but by focusing much more on the action and channeling popular elements of AMC's TV series, it aims to scratch a different itch altogether. Weirdly though, a lot of its mechanics don't feel built for VR, and it never does much to contribute to Walking Dead lore, so it's just fine if you're here for a good old-fashioned zombie-themed arcade shooter with a lot of guts and only a few brains. Survios don't waste any time getting the action going. From the very first moment, Onslaught plops you into a rescue mission, hands you a hefty gun, and shows you a nice big shambling herd of walkers to shoot at. That's what The Walking Dead Onslaught is all about, and aside from some item collection, it never really moves beyond it. Onslaught is split into two major modes, a short 5-hour story campaign starring Norman Reedus as Daryl Dixon, and an infinitely replayable supply run mode where you grab as much loot as you can while outrunning an impenetrable wall of walkers. They're linked together in that the progression through the main story is gated by how many survivors you've recruited in Supply Run, so Supply Run mode is clearly there to serve as a loot treadmill that buffers out the length of the campaign. It does double as a fun way to test out your newest and best weapons though, so it's generally the acceptable kind of padding. This has made walkers genuinely fun to kill. You can grab them by the neck and go with the old 1-2 face stab, or you can shoot them until their limbs fall off. Either way, there's usually a lot of them around you at once, and the simple action of pushing through an entire swarm of them can get the old heart pumping at the best moments. That said, this is no survival game, and because of that, it never really builds up any meaningful tension or dread. While Saints and Sinners makes you worry about your weapons breaking down or ammo running out at the worst possible time, scarcity isn't a problem in Onslaught. You have a room full of zombies to clear, and that's about it. Onslaught attempts to offset that by making your guns feel underpowered, to the point where you can unload several bullets into a walker's head only to have them get back up again if you're on higher difficulty levels. That's pretty annoying and doesn't feel true to the way walkers work on the show. Worse still, the reload process feels archaic and janky. Instead of the traditional and satisfying interactivity of manually inserting a magazine and pulling back the slide, you just push a button and watch an animation in which your character does it for you at their own glacial pace. It looks okay, but it really slows down the natural pace of ranged combat we see in most VR shooters. Partially because of that, melee weapons end up being some of the most powerful and useful in Onslaught. At any difficulty level, the toughest walkers go down with a single well-placed thrust to the nasal cavity. Since weapons don't break and there's no stamina system, it's entirely possible to clear a room of walkers by hastily stabbing your way through it. Kebabs, anyone? Collecting items is fundamental to progressing through Onslaught's campaign, but it doesn't feel good to do. To pick up an item, you simply point and tap the trigger button to make it disappear into an invisible inventory slot. That's something that's expected in a traditional game, but really hurts the immersion in VR. It makes Onslaught's world feel static by comparison to what we've come to expect after experiencing games like Saints and Sinners and Half-Life Alyx. To its credit, it's great that the items you collect have some interesting uses. You can spend resources on upgrades for Alexandria, which serves as the primary hub town. It's modeled exactly as it appears on TV, with some good attention to detail, right down to the row of townhouses and that one solar panel. The upgrades that you buy there can generously improve crucial stats like your max health and how much ammo you find, making them well worth the cost. And it's a nice touch to see the buildings change as you improve them. On top of that, you can invest in upgrading your weapons and making them even more satisfyingly deadly. All of this looks and sounds just fine for a VR game in 2020, but the character performances and writing are mostly lackluster and stale. Without ruining anything, Onslaught doesn't seem to have that much to say or add to the Walking Dead TV universe, and there are plenty of times where the delivery of its inconsequential story feels uninspired. The best writing easily goes to Eugene, played by the show's Josh McDermott. His awkward one-liners are as consistently well delivered as fans will expect from him. Walking Dead Onslaught has all the trappings of a pretty good hack-and-slash zombie game, but it's not quite up to par in terms of interesting VR interactions, and its flavorless story mode clocks in at a measly 5 hours. It's great to see performances from Norman Reedus and the rest from this perspective, but its use of the popular TV show characters and environments is lacking because it never goes anywhere or tells us anything we don't already know. That